Hey folks, how's it going? I'm starting 3 minutes early, and for once, that actually means something. Because it's one of those rare instances where I managed to plan a stream ahead of time. You know, more than like 15 to 30 minutes ahead. And this is also going to be an unusually focused stream. You know, not quite as incoherent. I say that now, but watch it derail. Anyway. So I have a few ideas for this. In fact, specifically, I was looking over my list of video ideas and spotted a few that made me think, you know, this is interesting, but maybe not enough for an entire separate video. So why not do it in a stream now? And I'm just going to start out somewhat casual while people are still rolling in by simply browsing some stuff, some interesting stuff. What's interesting? Well, swords, of course. Why would you ask? I'm sure you didn't, but you know. So, by the way, the Met Museum, their website metmuseum.org, I would highly recommend if you want to look at historical originals. What I like about their website is that they usually list measurements, including the weight quite often, which, you know, most websites and museums don't really do. And their pictures are in the public domain. So if you want to use them for your own videos or whatever, you can. You don't even have to credit them. I generally do. And I would suggest you do the same. But yeah, you can. And the same thing is true for the Cleveland Museum of Art, which also has a bunch of, bunch of collections or pieces in their collection, I should say, online, and they also are in the public domain. So that's really useful. So one thing I wanted to bring up is I saw a video just recently about removing a bluing on a sword. I think it was a cold steel sword in particular. And it seems like the idea is quite often people don't like those standard black or blued finishes, and they want to make them more historically accurate. However, a blackened finish is historically accurate. So if you're one of those people who don't like it because you think that's not what they did in history, well, let's look at a few. Now, a lot of these are black and white, so that's not really going to help. But here's an example. This one is originally blackened and quite nicely done as well. Personally, I really like this. I think it adds something to it when the hilt is a different color than the blade. And this is quite a nice one overall. I mean, it's got the usual thing that you quite often see in historical originals, where we, with our modern sensibilities, look at it and like, that crossguard ain't entirely straight. I mean, it is straight mostly, but it's a little bit, you know, it's not a right angle to the blade. They didn't care. But not all of them are like that. Some are definitely more precisely shaped and proportioned and all that. This one is kind of in the middle. Now you can see it's a little bit off overall, but it's clearly this is high quality craftsmanship. No doubt about it, right? Let me actually put the chat over on my other screen so I can see it a little better. And it's not too busy right now, so I should be able to keep track of it. But as the chat gets busier, I'm going to have to prioritize super chats, of course. But for right now, it's pretty chill. So let's see what you folks have to say here. Love the blackened hilts. Add it down on my printer pay. It's a bit more matte than this example, but looks fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of examples in history of that, and they can look absolutely great. Now, I get that some people don't like the sort of generic black and finish that you often see where it's too uniform, I guess is a way to put it, and kind of fake looking, if you know what I mean. But there are definitely plenty of ways in which you can do this quite well. There isn't any combat? Nope, we only just started. 6 minutes. It's funny, you know, 6 minutes on a stream is nothing. 6 minutes on a video, you can cover quite a bit. But videos are a little bit more condensed and have the benefit of editing. All right, so this is a really nice example in general, by the way. I always find it interesting to look at the amount of detail that originals have that just are not usually reproduced on the market now. You know, there was one that I saw here. Yeah, this one. This sort of grind on the blade, like you generally just do not see outside of custom pieces. Like, of course, you can go to a blacksmith and, you know, like a high-end bladesmith and commission this. Of course you can, but it's like generally in terms of reproductions, what you normally see, this is just not amongst them. Like, just look at, zoom in on this probably. Hang on. Yeah. Yes, okay. That's another nice thing about the Met Museum. Just look at how res the picture is. Look at how res it is. It's a weird thing to say, but anyway. Yeah, just the detail here. Isn't that amazing? Like, that's the kind of thing that you just... Even when you're at a museum, or when you see pictures from museums, I should say, you don't often see this. Thank you, Gabriel, for becoming a member. I appreciate that. But when you actually stand in front of it at the museum and you can look at the sword in detail, then that's where you see all this. You know, like the way the wire is done, you know, the knot there, and all these, they decorated them quite a lot, often. And Todd has talked about that too, from Todd's workshop, how even when they made something somewhat crudely by our modern standards, in the way of, okay, let me just crank out more so I can sell more so I can make more money, that still applied back then, they still decorated things. Sometimes in hasty ways that we would call sloppy, but they still did it. They still found value in decorations. Now, this is obviously, you know, very professionally done. And even by the standards of the time, or by our standards too. Like, this is a beautiful piece, right? Thanks, Scott. Historically, materials are expensive and labor is cheap. Now the reverse is true. Detail work is labor intensive. Yes. Now, there was still an incentive back then to make more, you know, to save time and make more pieces and sell more. But yeah, labor was cheaper, materials cost more. So you have a different kind of... This is actually one that I used as an icon on Patreon. Like, I took this and kind of artsified it, so to speak, to make it look drawn, as, you know, the $50 tier on Patreon. Called it the Sword of Generosity. Because, like, this is so... you know, it's... Just look at the detail in this. It's extra in a number of ways. That's... Let me see. I would guess that might actually be gilded. It could be brass or bronze. It is gold, though. Yeah, that's what I thought. This is actually gilded. That's probably silver right there. You can see how shiny that is. Like, that's impressive. Like, that is a really... I don't like the stuff personally. I mean, fair enough. Some people don't like the particularly fancy stuff, you know, prefer more what you would call munitions grade, you know, more simple, pragmatic, which is fair. I just find as an art piece, this is extremely impressive. So definitely worth... Oh, wait, I already checked that one out. Definitely worth looking at in detail, especially also in person. Do we have any more? Yep, there's some more. Yeah, I mean, here's an example. Here's an example of something simpler. Okay, I said simpler, and then it's still highly decorated. Let's see if we can find a simpler one. I picked rapiers, by the way, because on average, they're more well preserved. You know, like if we look at this here, at the Cleveland Museum of Art, I simply entered sword. So you get all kinds of things, right? And, hey, open it in another tab. No, you don't want to? Okay, fine. I mean, this is, for the time, this is pretty well preserved. I mean, like, it's not heavily corroded, but it doesn't have the grip anymore. You can see the age. And, I mean, here's something for the people who like it simple. This is simple. Like, this is not as highly decorated. And you can see, again, they didn't care as much about symmetry. Like, the guard is kind of lopsided, a little bit crooked looking. The pommel isn't quite straight. Now, some of this, by the way, can be caused by use. Like, if you... Like, some hard impacts can bend the tang and make it look out of alignment. But some of these definitely were made like that, and they didn't really care. There's an executioner sword, which, of course, they also highly decorated. At least on the blade. The hilt furniture's pretty simple overall. Yeah, there's one that's simple in the sense that it's unadorned, but even so, you see the difference to a lot of reproductions on the market now. You know, like the geometry, just overall. There's nothing simple about this grip. They could have made it much simpler. There's no need for that technically, but you know, they chose to give it a more complex shape. Now, of course, hand making it also helps with that, and hand making it in the context of labor being cheaper, of course. You can absolutely commission this kind of stuff. And you can commission it to even look better than the originals. But it'll cost you. We're talking like several $1,000s. That kind of thing. You know, if we look at this here, there's also bluing on the blade itself, which looks really nice. It kind of almost transitions from blue to purple here. And you got decorations there too, of course. Thank you, Llama Bing. Highly appreciate the very generous donation. I've got some money, so I'm sharing. It's a lovely set of swords. I do like the juxtaposition of a tool made to destroy that's made to be as beautiful as the artisan can make and the client can afford. Yeah, that's a good point, for sure. There, thank you again. Very much, highly appreciated. And yes, those would have been for nobility. And hey, Sword Sage, and Nayot. I think Blargdy is also... Yeah. The crew is there. Nice. Maybe I should let you jump in on a call later too, if you like. But I'm just gonna let some of the other things... Just gonna get some of the other things out of the way, so to speak, that I wanted to mention. Mortuary hilt swords. That's something that's sorely missing in my collection. You know, I have a basket hilt, a Scottish basket hilt, but I have to say I generally actually prefer earlier British or German basket hilt swords. I just kind of like the way they're shaped a little bit more. Anyway, I've got other things too. We can always go back to sword porn, if you will, but here is something very... hang on. Okay. Yeah, if you're wondering, I don't use AdBlock because I know how important it is for YouTubers to actually get revenue, you know, to actually be compensated for their work. It's like, I know it's obnoxious, but I feel like it's kind of a necessary evil. Anyway, so here is some blatant sorcery footage, and it's surprisingly realistic. So as you can see, 200 hours of VR combat experience. What does that look like? I'm going to run it without audio because audio usually causes trouble for copyright purposes, even though it's fair use, obviously. So this right here, let's look at that again. Maybe, shall we do slow-mo? There, let's look at that again. That right there. That is an actual technique. I don't know if this person has HEMA experience. I'm guessing not. Presumably this is just from playing the game, which still teaches you something, like, quite clearly. You know, it's basically, it's a deflection by cutting into the attack, which, you know, on the downside, doing that with a sword against a mace. I mean, this one has a wooden haft, so it's not that big of a deal. If it was an all-steel mace, oof, that would mess with your blade. That would definitely cause quite a bit of damage. Yeah, this here. Look at how straightforward and direct it is without a bunch of extra fluff. It makes me wonder if this person has done HEMA after all. Because, you know, this is unusually tight movements. Usually gamers are more on the flaily side in VR. That was smooth, right? That kick to finish it off. Half sorting too. You know what? That person at least knows something about HEMA. Right? Yes, good point, Neo. Neo just pointed out that if you have a green name, so if you're a YouTube member, you can join the Discord. There should be a post. I should probably post it again, but I've posted the link to the Discord a number of times for members. So if you look at the previous posts, you should be able to find that. And if you do, please let me know. Unfortunately, Patreon doesn't do it automatically. Patreon has a bot that assigns the role automatically. Through YouTube members, you got to let me know so I can do it manually, right? Or a mod. Like if you see a wrench, that's a mod. Yeah, here again. Just look at that. That is, you know, perfectly realistic and skilled. Yeah, boom. That. Perfection. You know? Just, so you see that there's somebody coming in with an axe and no shield and no gauntlets. You're like, yeah, screw your hand. I mean, you can do that with a sword too. It doesn't have to be an axe. Like, just the fact that their arm is forward as they attack makes their hand vulnerable, unless they're using a basket hilt or some other kind of complex hilt that protects the hand pretty well. So that is a very legit, effective technique to use in historical combat. Okay, I didn't know that the blades could break, actually. What the hell? Did you use a wall hanger? Look at that. Bonk. There goes the blade. Yikes. Good reaction, though. Instead of being flustered, like, what happened? Okay. I'm going to stab you with what's left. Screw it. And then grapple. Beating somebody else with the arm. That's pretty neat, too. Using them as a human shield against a mage. Superman punching the mage. Just grabbing that staff like, that's mine now. Screw you. That's actually something in blatant sorcery. Grappling is OP. Like super OP. Because they're all limp, noodly ragdolls, right? So you can grab them, and if you grab them, they just go limp. They can't resist. Of course they can't. How would you even do that in VR? Whereas in the real world, you know, if the other person you're trying to grapple is stronger and / or better at grappling, you just ran head first into your own grave. You know, like you're screwed, pretty much. Bonk. Yeah. So this is really impressive. Like, this is by the standards of you know, historical martial arts. It's surprisingly realistic, and it also looks cool, right? I mean, the shield toss not so much, but it's cool, right? It's like it's a pretty common fantasy thing, and in all fairness, there are situations where you could do that if you have an extra shield. Like, it's easy to become almost like a rule lawyer in HEMA, right? Where you're just like, well, that's not in the manuscript. Does it work though? If it's not in the manuscript, but if you grab some, like, don't do this in sparring, by the way, but if you grab someone and manage to smash their face into the wall, that may not be in the manuscript, but does it work? Yeah. Right? Anyway. Yeah, got that again, interrupting the attack. That's really nice too. Let's look at that again. Check that shit out. So, that's actually a parry right there. I mean, okay, in slow-mo it doesn't look quite as nice because there's clipping. It's just how VR works. But, quite nice. Nicely done indeed. Chop. Sometimes that's all you need. Interesting grappling. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's of course also in the manuscript. In all of the manuscripts, how to defend yourself against a mage throwing a fireball at you. Bet your ass Fiore covered that. And Meyer too. Both Meyers, in fact. But, you know, one of the two Meyers covered ice balls as well, not just fireballs. Anyway, pretty cool. So, next thing. Let me just catch up with the chat here. Use 3.5 edition HEMA here, yeah. Really liking the combat options in this game. Yeah, it's basically, it depends a lot on your creativity. You know, like the more creative you are, the more you can figure out. Like, it's, there's a certain amount of jank, but not too much actually. Ironically, lots of people who play this game probably want to use more realistic techniques, but unfortunately you have to contend with a lot of lag, which forces them to fail to get any results. That's true, yeah. There are some technical limitations, of course, right? So, the next thing I've got here. Guy with 2 swords on road. Let's check that out. So we got some chonker shirtless with 2 swords. I mean, sword-like objects, 2 wall hangers probably. He's like, witness me! He wants to go to Valhalla, or like discount Valhalla, like Dollarama version of Valhalla. Dollarhalla. And so here's how the police deals with him. First off, you can tell this is not in America because he hasn't already been shot 50 times. So this seems to be in a Spanish-speaking country, looks like, because I thought I saw Policia on one of the cars. I mean, you know, they have firearms at the ready, but they haven't already shot him 50 times. So, yeah, not America. There's just casually strolling around with his wall hangers. And now the action happens. Off camera. So they drive at him with their van. He keeps smashing the windshield with his SLOs. And now there's the other car. And they very precisely, gently squash him. Gently. It's just a light crush, you know. Not to just crush his legs completely. No, they just gently box him in. Like, kudos. Like, that's that level of professionalism. Now, the downside is the cars are taking some damage because he's still flailing, but better the windshield than a person, right? So he's still flailing. Look at this idiot. He's still flailing. And now they're like, that's a bit too much damage to the cars, probably. Now, okay, I said professionalism, but at the same time, they don't seem to quite know what to do with him. Like, there's got to be a better way to handle this. And I have an idea. Okay? I have an idea for a better way to handle this. Now, keep in mind, I don't know anything about law enforcement tactics and common procedure and everything. If somebody brings up taser, I don't know if they already tried a taser. There are people that just shrug that off for some reason. Like sometimes you see somebody getting tased and they don't even respond. They don't do anything. Like they just continue. Like it has no effect. I don't know if they tried that already. But either way, now vehicles, okay, it kind of works. You could just, you could just run him over. Just be like, screw you. But they were trying to do that with minimum amount of damage to the person, which I respect. But why not get some riot shields out there? Now, they might not have had any at the ready, but at the same time, this van, again, I don't even know where this is, let alone what the procedures are and what kind of equipment the police in this country has generally, or in that city or whatever. But I would think, like, shouldn't it be possible to get riot shields going? Basically, you just need, at the minimum, 2 people with riot shields. Because, like, it doesn't matter how much he's flailing, you got a big-ass shield to protect yourself. If you have 2 people, smush him, and, once you've sandwiched him, basically, with 2 or 3 shields, or 4, you just beat him until he stops, right? Or pepper spray him or whatever else. I feel like would probably be more effective than what they're trying to do with the vehicles, but hey, I could be talking out of my ass. It's just my opinion. Or maybe like a man catcher. Like supposedly Greg. Bare chest mall ninja versus the mighty metal chariots. Yes, indeed. He was not prepared for the metal chariots. Yeah. Why aren't we asking why he wanted to duel? It might be something as simple as meth. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too simplistic here, but it could just be meth, right? This happened in 2020 during the COVID-19 outbreak. A dual-wielding fatso asked to be tested for COVID-19. What? That's what it took to break him? That's why he went mall ninja. Wielding wall hangers. Because he was asked to do a COVID test. There are a few things that spell out first world problems quite like this. Happened in Madrid, Spain. Wow. Okay. Well, let's go from one weird thing to another. Good old Heinrich von Gunther Roth. That's quite a name, right? Who wrote in the 16th century. It's one of the mini manuscripts, right? No big deal. It's like, yeah, okay, grappling, rapiers, sabers, all right, longsword, spear, halberd, yes. Boom! And then we've got this. Hang on, here. What the hell is that? That's a little different. Axe swords. So I was originally planning to make a video about that, but then I realized there's hardly any info about this. You know, because the source itself doesn't really elaborate. It's like, yeah, so here's the thing. Boom. Right? He's very nonchalant about it. So from what I can see, hang on, where is it? There. Very little description here. And it's labeled battle axe. Now I found this on Reddit too, where somebody says this. My recollection of the standard interpretation of these images is that they depict techniques which can be used with either sword or axe, not some new weapon we've never seen anywhere else. You know, sounds plausible, but then you look at what they do exactly. You can't do that with a sword, what's happening here right now. This has to be an axe. Because a sword doesn't have anything there to hook with or control. And he's using the axe blade to push down the opponent's weapon. That only works with an axe. So this can't be either a sword or an axe. So now this doesn't mean that they use this. I've never seen a design like this, like an actual find. But like, what the hell is that? You know? It could be one of those kind of proof of concept almost. The same way as Talhofer has some scribblings, basically. Like Talhofer shows some unconventional weapon designs that he came up with, presumably, or somebody else that he plagiarized, who knows. So this could be one of those weird things that wasn't supposed to be in standard use. But yeah, what the hell, right? It's such a strange idea. And by the way, if you want to try this out, Purple Heart Armory has a trainer. So that's an option. It's such a weird idea. I mean, okay, in some ways it's not even necessarily that weird because all steel axes existed. So basically all you're doing is you're putting a guard and a pommel on it. The question is this also a blade? Like, it's hard to say. Like, this could just be, if you imagine this is not a blade, but it's just a pipe, basically. And there's no crossguard. This could be just a standard battle axe. And it's labeled battle axe. So maybe it's not as weird as it seems. Maybe he was just like, yeah, here's a battle axe, and I'm just going to make it look more like a sword just because, why not? Right? Maybe somebody has dug into this and found out more about the source and can tell us what's going on, but yeah, I find it confusing. I have that sword axe from Purple Heart Armory, so how does it work? Have you tried it out? What's going on with that? Anyway, this is a little bit more mainstream, if you will. Trying to balance a weapon when crafting it can't be easy. Yeah, because like, how do you combine a sword and an axe? Fundamentally, you don't. You can't, because the balance is literally the opposite. A sword has most of the mass in the bottom, where you grip it, and an axe has most of the mass on the other end. There is no combining this. You know, the moment you add more mass to the end, it's an axe. You know, like you can try to shift this more so that it's more or less balanced in the middle, but it's just a bad compromise at that point, because now it doesn't have as much striking power as the axe, but it doesn't have the maneuverability of the sword and the speed. So what's the point, right? My wrists ache just by looking at those illustrations, yeah. All right, so now something very different. One of the weirdest comments I've ever seen. I'm just going to let you take that in. No comment. I'm just going to let you read it and take it in. There's no comment otherwise. Okay. Yes, I hope, I really hope this is satire. If it is, there's something about how unhinged it is, the way it's written, that like, that's if that's intentional, if that's trolling or satire or whatever, then it's top notch. Because there's this certain completely off the rocker, unhinged tone that it has, while saying swords were electrified back then and could catch on fire. We have been lied to. Like, wow. It could also be a bot. It could totally be some AI generated nonsense. But I'm just wondering, like, what happened here? This is like a crime scene, and you're trying to figure out, like, what's the motive? How did this get committed? You know? What happened here? Yeah, the steel will catch on fire. Yeah. How would mail even help against electricity? I don't know. I mean, he's not talking about mail. He's talking about mail chain. Mail chain? Sounds like something one might find in a BDSM dungeon. Mail chain. What is chained exactly? Do I want to? I don't want to know. As opposed to female chain, yes. I think I heard swords in Highlander were electrified to make the sparks. That makes sense. I mean, you know, it doesn't, but as far as a prop is concerned, if you want a certain effect, then yeah. Tide comes in, so it get electrified, can't explain it. Yes. Can't explain that. Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up because what the hell? Yeah. Okay, so this was something that I was thinking maybe video, but then I thought that's probably doesn't really make sense to do an entire video on that. I remember you being around for a long time. I've never figured out how to pronounce your name. Is it Nogarem? Nogarem? Do I pronounce that correctly? Or anyway, thank you. I remember I think you've been around for like 10 years or so at least. So appreciate that you're still there. Long time since I caught the last stream. Hope you're doing good. Love your great content. Please keep being that awesome. Thank you. I'll try. That was correct? Okay, good. Yes, so claws. Mortal Kombat 11 has some interesting stuff. So Shang Tsung has these syringe claws, I guess. I'm assuming they're there to inject poison. At least that's what it looks like. Toxin, I guess is the correct word. And they fold outward. So they fold in like this. And I guess it's good that they're curved away a little bit so he doesn't poke himself with the poisonous needles. I still find that questionable. Like, just imagine you're wearing these and suddenly you have an itch in your upper arm, like in a distracted moment, and you just reach up and just, oh, damn. And you've pricked yourself on your own poison claws. That'd be rough. I feel like there needs to be some kind of sheath or some sort of safety mechanism. But then again, it's Shang Tsung. He's crazy, so whatever, right? So they fold forward like that. And this is one of those designs where I'm thinking, okay, you know, obviously this would be tough to make in real life in such a way that it's not fragile or prone to wear out and break and the mechanism to fail, things like that, right? But it's a cool design. It suits the character because it's pretty devious, right? Especially because it's poisonous. And it's a neat idea. You know, the way they fold forward like that, as opposed to extending straight forward. And they have another one like that. Is that the design for Pharaoh Tor? Clearly Pharaoh has grown up and has these claws here. Now in this picture it looks weird because it looks like the two fingers are separated. I don't think that's the case in the final design. Yeah. So the way this is shown, I actually like, because there's a handle here. So you get a proper grip on it. You can put your weight into it. Like you can punch pretty hard with that. And like, yeah, you still have the issue that when they fold back, that's a lot of, there's a lot of blade there. So I don't think you're super likely to injure yourself with that. You wouldn't want to eat lunch with those on, but for combat purposes, I think you wouldn't necessarily injure yourself when they're folded in. And yeah, I mean, you've got armor too. The downside, of course, is that your entire forearm and wrist are completely rigid now. Like you can't bend it. It's fixed into a certain position. But the good thing is that also means that your wrist can't be overextended. Like you can't be injured that way. So yeah, it's actually a pretty damn good design. Surprisingly. I didn't expect that. Thought Farah was supposed to become an ogre when she grew up. Doesn't look very ogre-like. Oh yeah, pretty cool. What do you think? Is she wearing Saw armor? Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of Mad Max aesthetic, right? Where everybody's just wearing random metal scrap that they strap to themselves and like leather strips everywhere and just a bunch of random crap. It definitely has a very post-apocalyptic Mad Max vibe, which, I mean, obviously that's where the character comes from. Ferrator, Master Blaster, very, very obvious inspiration right there. So, of course, they went with that. The Booby Band-Aid gives plus 50 defense. Wait, yeah. Yeah, well, it's just a leather strip. I mean, at least they're small enough that they will probably be held in place by that, not just flop out. So, there's that. Would you even call it armor? Nah, I wouldn't. Mortal Kombat designers would. Getting thrill kill vibes from this, though. Yeah, the Master Blaster influence is showing through. Yes, super obvious. Like, particularly, you know, this guy. And I don't know if I'm not sure if in this version if she's still riding on his back, but that was like the early version, the previous one from Mortal Kombat 10. That's where you had Farah riding on Thor's back, where the Master Blaster thing is super obvious. It's not quite as obvious anymore, but the design you can still kind of see the Mad Max influence, right? Yeah, she does wear a chain. It's not a tail, but yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on there. Let's see. Other weird things. Let's talk about face shields. There are a lot of these in medieval manuscripts and depictions. Like if you go on manuscript miniatures, you'll find a lot of these face bucklers. These even got their tongues out. There's this one, like Monday, am I right? They're both so thrilled. Like both the dude and his shield look like going to the office on a Monday morning. Like, okay, all right, let's do this shit. I'm running on nothing but caffeine and it's barely enough. All right, another day at the office. Let's do it. Right? I look super thrilled to be there. And his shield clearly agrees. There is a good way to combine axe and sword to make the best heads the guard. Oh, yeah. There's a typo in there somewhere. Yeah, I've made a video about that, actually, about the switch axe from Monster Hunter and how you could possibly do something more, well, possible in real life. If you haven't seen that yet, you can check that out. Yeah, you can just about see that. The face there. Face in the mud. All the guys praying. And we've got this. The guy's hiding behind the face. It's so weird how many of these are depicted as like three-dimensional. Like the face is actually sculpted. It's not just painted on, it's actually sculpted. And that's kind of weird. Like I've seen surviving shields with faces painted on them. It's pretty common. I mean, you've probably seen the Greek ones with the Medusa face. Makes a lot of sense, lore-wise. And yeah, you definitely find that quite a bit where they are painted on. Sculpted, not so much. I've seen a few that are like embossed or something on there, but not quite to this extent. Yeah, you can see there's another face shield. I think that one has a mustache, if I see that right. There's so many of those. Why are there so many face shields? I mean, okay, this one is a different kind of thing. It's basically a medieval cartoon. All right, so the knight fighting a snail, which is a common iconography, which symbolizes the knight's struggle against laziness, basically. That's what the snail symbolizes here. I don't know why he's a half lion, chicken, something, but yeah, I'm sure they had some symbolism in there too. If your shield does not have a mustache, what are we even doing here? Yeah, I know, right? The stash shield is a staple. This one's pretty good. It looks like the guy is acting like a guard. He's watching one direction. The shield is watching the other direction. Has like a very concentrated, contemplating expression. Thank you, Cameron G. Your annual tribute, my lord. And where are my crops, bitch? Where are my crops? This one's good. I don't even know what the hell these are. They all have weird little trunk hobgoblin noses or something. And they all find the siege really funny, including the buckler. The buckler is highly amused by the siege as well. The people who are sitting inside, not so amused, but everybody else seems to be having a blast, including the shield. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, they had a number of interesting ideas about people living in distant lands. There's the whole terra incognita thing. Australia doesn't exist and has some strange creatures. Where they supposedly in those distant lands, you had people who didn't have a head, but just had a large face on their chest. And dog-faced people and all kinds of weird crap, you know. Medieval fantasy, basically. This shield looks like it's just been rejected. It looks like it chatted up another shield, you know. Like, hey, babe, what's up? Can I buy you a drink? And was just rebuffed. And I was just like, oh, shit. It's like the incel shield. It's about to bitch online about how picky women are. You know, that's kind of what it looks like. I'm reading too much into it, but that's part of the fun. Dog-faced people's no way to refer to people from New Jersey. Oh, no. Right. This one even has a beard. Like, not just a mustache. In fact, it doesn't have a mustache at all. But it's got a flowing beard. I don't know how you make that. But hey. I forgot the crops have mercy. No. Into the dungeon with you. Into the dungeon where you will be subjected to all kinds of sin and debauchery to prevent entry into the kingdom of heaven. That's an appropriate punishment for you. You'll hate that. So much sin you can't even fathom. Yeah, there will be demons. Demons of unusual libido with, you know, prominent feminine features. You wouldn't want that, would you? We're a pious medieval knight after all. You got to be in that mindset. It's the last thing you would ever want, because then you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Can I get into the dungeon? I've sinned far too much. No. If you've already sinned too much, there is no need for you to go into the dungeon. You must be pure. Right? Because if you've already sinned too much, and you're not going to enter heaven anyway, right? Yeah, so this is a bird shield. It's kind of like, whatever, you know, after some of this crazy stuff we've seen. Kind of harmless, right? It's like, yeah, there's just a bird on there. There's a funny looking horse. Looks tiny because they didn't really do proportions quite often. It's like, yeah, you know, just the usual. Just business as usual in the 14th and 15th century. 14th in this case, 1375 to 1380. This actually looks pretty cool. And I think I have seen shields like this before, where you have maybe like a wooden core and then metal on top. Usually not necessarily for fighting, because you're adding some extra weight for no benefit other than, hey, look at how cool I am, right? Thanks, Skallagrim. I just checked. I'm around for about 3 years now. 3? Huh. There must have been somebody else with your name then, because I thought I remember you from way back. Like 2010s. I could just be having a brain malfunction and just confusing things. Or is that just how long you've been on Patreon? Anyway, either way, yeah, there's the most anxious looking owl thing you've ever seen. Talking to the boat, maybe? The dog boat? Yeah, business as usual, right? Like, there's nothing to see here. You know, just a horse getting stabbed to death while the anxious owl shield is talking to the dog boat. You know. That's just medieval times for you. That's from 1334, by the way. Wait, is there actually... Oh, there. For a moment, I was like, why did I save this? Is there really a face shield? Oh, yeah. There is a face shield, and it's giving you a very sad side eye. Looks more like a bear boat. Could be. Yeah. So, another shield with a mustache that's giving you a side eye. I don't know what their fascination with face shields was. I mean, you know what? Part of it is maybe, this is totally just my speculation, it's probably bullshit, but like, if you're fully armored and you have your visor down, now these guys have theirs up or don't even have one, but in general, if you have your visor down, they can't see your face. So why not put a face on your shield? Like a more menacing face, right? Just imagine, you know, Arnie's Talk to the Hand, except it's Talk to the Shield. That kind of thing. This one's disturbingly realistic, I guess you might say. Like, the shield face looks more human than the actual people here, right? Sounds like something done to both to flex wealth, but also to unnerve people. Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely, that's how they, you know, they also painted weird-looking faces onto helmets and stuff like that. Did they take the axe heads off the shaft? Apparently, I don't really know what's going on there. That this guy's just casually carrying an axe blade. In fact, both of them are. But it looks like he also has a halberd with the blade on, and the other guy doesn't even have a haft. So I don't really know what's going on here. I'm almost tempted to interpret it as just a single-handed all-steel axe, but the blade is too long and the, you know, handle or whatever is too short. So no, it does look like this is just a spare blade for a polearm. I don't know. Well, broken could be, but it doesn't look like it. Usually, I've seen plenty of imagery where they show broken weapons, and they do show the wooden half broken, and there's nothing sticking out there. Maybe it is broken, maybe it's supposed to be like that, but it's hard to say. They drew some weird stuff sometimes, right? So you can't always tell. Kind of look like tools, not weapons. The head looks more like a weapon to me. Now, it can be hard to distinguish, but I feel like this extra point here in particular, I don't know. You don't normally see that on tool axes. And yes, they're clearly geared for war. They have armor and other weapons, so I don't know. Who knows what's going on there? All right. And then, what else do I have here? Yes. That's just it's nothing spectacular. Just a quick mini rant about something that I find particularly annoying, and I doubt I'm the only one. Don't you hate it when healing is disabled in games, in cutscenes? You know, like you have games where there's all kinds of ways of healing somebody, with magic in particular, right? Like there's health potions, there's healing spells, there's even resurrection spells. And then you have a cutscene where somebody is injured and like, I'm dying, and everybody's like, no. And like, there's a healer around, and there are potions around. We know that, you know, because we have them in the party, we've used them before. And the character dies because the story says so. Don't you hate that? Character takes 15 bullets and paper cut kills him. Yeah. I mean, you know, that's kind of to be expected, the whole angle that you can take a lot more damage gameplay-wise than the character can lore-wise, just to not make the game too hard. But, like, if you have magical healing and stuff, and then you have to just helplessly watch the character die in a cutscene, even though you know you have the spells, you have the healer right there, you have all the potions in the world. Like, there's no reason for this, right? Isn't that annoying? Also, we gotta look at the cavalry spider helmet in a bit. Anyway, thanks, Scott. Are there any pics with more than one face shield in the image? Gwendolyn noticed that. Could be an artist protagonist to your notification. An artist's protagonist to your notification. Huh. That's a good idea. That's a good. I think I saw. Yeah, there's some. Hang on. There's a duel. I mean, okay, in a duel, I guess both could be protagonist, sort of, right? But yeah, in this case, both of them have one. In this case, I'm pretty sure this one guy isn't the protagonist, because he looks like everybody else. Now, here, I have a feeling this is probably David and Goliath. So giving Goliath a weird, menacing-looking, well, I mean, rebuffed-looking face shield, that would make sense. It's not like David is any less special. In fact, if anything, the opposite. But, yeah, in most of these pictures, it's usually only one. That might mean something or it might not. Honestly, that scenario with the healing reminds me of a most hated trope, which is win in battle, lose in the cutscene. Yeah. I mean, that's a general problem with game design. Basically, the question of, do you want to emphasize the gameplay or do you want to emphasize the storytelling more? You know, some games go in different directions. Some try to do both, but there's some problems with that. Now, of course, you can simply not have pre-generated cutscenes. But that's pretty limiting if you want to tell a story, of course. But, you know, if you, like, some games have very little story, or, well, I shouldn't even say necessarily little story, but they don't impose the story on you, right? So the gameplay is what matters more. What you do is what happens. Whereas other games have more of a railroaded storyline that is may or may not be kind of detached from what you did, because they can't account for every little thing you do all the time. You know, choices can matter, but there's a limit to how much the game can accommodate that and keep track of it and change according to what you do. With the current tech, at least. Let's see what else we have here. Oh yeah, there's a ray. No, I need to learn that I cannot open stuff in a new tab with the middle mouse button. It doesn't work here. Now that's something. Fancy and highly practical. And not even that heavy. 1.28 kilograms. Balanced mostly toward the hilt, of course. I still want a Skallagrim. It's also sorely missing in my collection, but it's just difficult to find ones that are really particularly well made and historically accurate that are not very expensive, you know? Like, you can absolutely get just about anything you want, but it'll have a price, and usually the high-end makers have a pretty long waiting list. But like, that would be... It's one of those swords that I would love to review, but hard to get for an affordable price, you know, at least in a way that's well made. Let's see, where was that spider helm? There we go. That's got to be one of the weirdest helm designs, right? Look at this thing. I can see the idea. They wanted to reduce the weight as much as possible. You know, give you as much protection as possible while using as little metal as possible. So this is quite a bit lighter than a lot of helmets, and it doesn't impede your vision as much or your breathing. You know, you've got this this little shield here, this bill almost, and you've got these metal strips hanging down. So, of course, that doesn't do anything against a thrust, against a cut. How much impact would they be able to withstand before they bend inwards? That's the other question. In fact, am I hallucinating, or is that a hinge? It is. Can you fold those up? Yeah, there are hinges. Interesting. Looks like a torture device. Supposedly a cavalry helmet. Yeah, the legs could be raised and locked up out of the way when not required. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty neat design. It's hideous. It's one of the ugliest helmets I've ever seen. but it's pretty cool, and yeah, it's not terribly heavy. So it's got the functionality, not the aesthetics. Most important part of armor is the drip. Yeah, I don't think it delivers on that front, unless you're just into weird stuff. Speaking of weird stuff, no, I keep doing it. I can't. Middle mouse click doesn't work, idiot. Medieval drip, yeah. Would it be for abusing / wearing mail over it? Maybe. It could work that way. Would make some sense. Yeah, pretty sure that's ceremonial. Or for trade. Definitely not for fighting. What else we got here? Nothing that stands out to... Oh yeah, for those who like it simple, you might appreciate that. I mean, it's also decorated. They did decorate a lot of swords. At least in around that time. You know, 15th, 16th century, 17th. A lot of stuff is decorated. So if you want to go further back in time for something a little simpler, not that they didn't have highly decorated swords in the Middle Ages, but you see more later on. I mean, you know, the more recent times generally have a higher chance of preserving objects well, you know, in good condition. That looks pretty simple. There's a longsword. Yep. There you go. If you don't like a bunch of extra stuff, and again, this seems to be blued. This, for the more... I almost said simple-minded. I meant like simplistically inclined. People who like it simple. It's not the same as simple-minded. Yeah, fits the bill, right? That's quite a nice grip shape too. And again, you see just these details. Even something as simple as this, you see these lines here, these grooves, just simple decorative touches. You know, it's still quite a simple guard, but it's got a little bit that you often don't see, at least in the budget range or even the mid-range quite often on the current reproduction market. And yeah, it works. It's a very nice blade as well overall. Utilitarian, yeah, that would be the word. Utilitarian-minded. Yeah, that's also a good example of subtle touches. You know, like there's not a whole lot of stuff going on. It's not heavily inlaid or engraved or otherwise ornamented or gilded or what have you. But you definitely have some touches that make the guard more complex in shape. I like this kind of thing. You know? It's just, it makes such a difference over just a flat bar with nothing, right? It doesn't need to have a whole lot, but just, you know, some grooves here and there, like some spherical shapes, some curves, some angles. Makes all the difference. Now, personally, I do not like this kind of pommel, really. because I like the ability to hold on to the pommel. You don't always want to, but, and you can, it's just uncomfortable with this twisted design. I've had a sword like that before with a twisted pommel, and it was a bit awkward. There's an S-Talk, which those are typically quite simple in design. You know, like, I mean, it's got the S-shape guard here, which does serve a practical purpose, by the way. You can trap an opponent's blade in the bind. And it used to be fancier, but overall, like, the outline is relatively simple. I wonder if people in the far future look at some cheap wall hangers and say, yeah, definitely ceremonial. I mean, they're not wrong, if that's the case, if that ever happens. They would not be wrong. Not like actual ceremonies, but the same sort of mindset, right? Something super fancy for certain occasions that's not supposed to be practical, you know, for down-to-earth use, if you will. Yeah, sure. It's basically the same spirit. That's a lot of tubas. Let's see what else we have here. Oh yeah, if you do like it fancy, there's one that is gilded and encrusted with gems. Yeah, bling. Pure bling, indeed. Pretty wild. Just look at that. Yeah, this is at the Met Museum. That's a lot of work for an important person, you know, who so happened to be better than everybody else by chance of their birth. Yay. Good old human tribalism. I feel like I should just search sword here as well. To not narrow it down as much. Where are the actual ones here? That one's fairly simple. Not much has changed to this day. Yep, a lot of people still get plenty of benefit from having been born into a certain family. Not as bad as it used to be in that regard, but it's still a thing to an extent. This one here is kind of a shame. I've seen a color picture, and this is way fancier than you can tell because there's plenty of gold in here too. Wait, copper alloy, misremembered. Yeah, copper alloy, horn and bone. So that looks way fancier in color. Can't really tell that here. Gold AKs are cooler though. It's debatable. Yeah, here's something much simpler again. Now, it could have been fancier originally. We don't know what kind of grip was on there. But, I mean, even despite the corrosion, you can still tell that this was pretty simple overall. Right, this is a pretty simple crossbar. And, yeah, simple, unadorned pommel, like nothing fancy about it. No complex geometry or anything. It's just like, yeah, this is what you get. It's just a simple tool of war. All right. Had a maker's mark. And, yeah, that's about it. Still, you know, a lot of work went into it still, of course. But not quite as fancy as this, for example. 19th century in 16th century style, yeah. That is some detail. Silver goes better with my eye and hair color, yeah. They can... You could pick your colors based on what, you know, complements you the best. Because back then, it was all custom. You could just tell them, this is exactly what I want. Use silver here, gold there. You can still do it. You can absolutely still do that. It's just, you gotta be prepared to dish out the dough. Yeah, this one must have been a lot fancier originally. You can just see that it's tarnished quite a bit. It's aged. It would have probably been brighter originally. You would have seen the detail much more. You know, there's just some gilded details there. And yeah, you can see engravings. The wood, of course, looked much better originally. Sometimes I regret that all our steel expired in the dirt, but on the other hand, they used to have to put so much gold on those hills in order to make sure they did not spontaneously light on fire. Yeah, right. They were electrified after all. That's got to be a later grip wrap. Yeah, grip later. Figures. That just looks more recent. That does not look as old as the rest of the sword. I mean, I have a feeling they must have cleaned it up quite a bit. They probably polished it a lot. Pretty sure that did not look like that before whoever did whatever to it. I have a feeling this is probably one of those Victorian jobs where they replaced that and polished it up. Because like the Victorians often didn't have a lot of respect for the authenticity of originals. They would sometimes replace pieces or modify them or repair them or whatever, and then not even make clear that that they did that. Kind of weird by current standards. Yeah, this one is so corroded, there's not as much I can say about it. Now you can see the basic shape. Pretty basic, but I mean, I don't think it was adorned originally, but well, then again, no, there was some detail. You can still see that. And you've got, this is such a weird combination. You've got a pretty fancy blade, with the multiple fullers and, the, somewhat ornamented S-shaped quillons. And then you just got a square, like a block, a square block that they didn't still engraved. It's like, interesting choice there. So you've got like the most basic possible shape and least ergonomic pommel, but decorate that shit. They found that important. Looks uncomfortable, very much. The Cube Knight, yeah. Had Minecraft hands. Yep, this one also fairly simple, but it's got some touches, to spruce it up a little bit. That one hurts to just think about it holding. Oh yeah, that with the square block pommel. Yeah, I wouldn't want to use that because it's like the grip is short enough that it would just jam your hand into it. So, oof. Do not want. Anyway, that's pretty much what I had for this stream. Let me see. Did I overlook anything? No, pretty much it. So, let me know what you think about this kind of format. It's probably more interesting when I prepare topics and pictures to look at. The downside is I don't engage as much with the chat as I usually do when we're just shooting the breeze and talking about whatever you bring up. But this is a little bit more focused. So Let me know what you think. Do you prefer one or the other, or both, or what's going on? Right? I think I'll switch to a Patreon stream afterwards. So you patrons, you can stick around. I'll post the link to the next stream on the Discord, and then we can talk about whatever you like, really. Have ourselves a little voice chat and all that good stuff. If you're interested in that too, you can either become a YouTube member or sign up on Patreon. The link is in the description below. And yeah, I'm also going to have to remember to post the link to the Discord again for new members. And yeah, we'll figure it out. Both are good. Both good for different occasions. It was very insightful. All right, thank you. Didn't mind it, kind of fun. Luckily, I had a snow day, so no work. Yeah. So we peasants are not good enough, huh? No. You have not harvested enough crops, so you will be whipped. All right? You will not get the fancy stuff where all the nobles gather around the table and feast on the pitiful crops that you have brought in. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Hope you had fun. And see you next time.